So, hello and welcome to the Human Story Behind the Business and Brand podcast. I'm the host, Jeanette Walton. I'm a career brand consultant and a Humans Matter champion who's committed to helping others deep dive into their many human facets that make them unique, fabulous beings. I'm also a strong advocate of storytelling to enrich our human connections and our human-to-human appreciation. This podcast series slightly deviates from my The Human Behind the Career Brand podcast in that it delves more deeply into those poignant moments, experiences, and lessons that have shaped a range of professionals and people into who they are and what they do today. It discusses their fates, flaws, feats, fears, foundations, and all the other for fabulous human elements that drive them in their professional lives. So my next guest for this podcast series is globally focused writer, editor, reporter, and human narrative storyteller Rachel Hartigan from the USA. Born and raised in the unassuming tourist town of Reno in Nevada, Rachel's expansive career journey includes as a journalist at the Washington Post, as well as US News, and as a long-term senior editor and reporter for National Geographic. She also previously worked for Nevada State's Lawmakers, for Harpers Magazine, Editorial Projects in Education, as well as the Range magazine targeting cowboys. Across the past several decades, she's expertly navigated the bumps, grinds, and continual shifts within the world of publishing to explore a range of themes and theories. Whether writing about persimmon tree genetics or reporting on the struggle for women's suffrage, and Rachel's new book, Lost, written after leaving National Geographic, investigates the three competing perspectives on female aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart's disappearance. Rachel identifies herself in Earhart in terms of resilience, unconventional choices, and career pivots, as well as a curiosity that has taken her across multiple continents and human and societal contexts. Her background editing at the Washington Post Book World and her reporting on education and culture for US News have really cultivated a storyteller who appreciates and celebrates multidimensional lives. Rachel has spent years probing not just what someone did, but why they did it, and how personal obsessions, values, and relationships shape what we do and who we become. Human fundamentals. She delves deeply without intruding or overstepping to deliver insights that inform, inspire, and possibly reshape existing views. So, Rachel, welcome. What an absolute pleasure it is to have you on my podcast.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for such a generous introduction.
Wow, there's so much to talk about. Deserves to be generous. So, if we get started, you've obviously worked across such a diversity of publications, stories, and investigations. What has been your favourite genre or content theme and why?
I really gravitate to stories that have their foundations in history and how history carries over into the present. I mean, I was a history major in college, and I feel like history is not, and this is going to sound very cliched, but it's not just in the past. It affects how we think, what we do, what the societal structures are. So those have tended to be my favorite.
Yeah. So, I mean, history, it has this ongoing impact, doesn't it? And there's so much history we should never forget, we should continue to learn from across a range of areas. Yeah, I'm a history buff, so I can relate to that. Yeah. And hence why you've been focused on Amelia Earhart with the history side of that too, yeah?
Yeah. It's been really fun to delve into that in addition to what people are trying to do now to find her.
Yeah, love it. So you've obviously been in the publishing profession for many years, which has included being laid off by some big players, such as Washington Post, pushing you to pivot. How do you believe you've kept yourself relevant as well as ready to pivot as and when required?
I think, well, as you may or may not know, when you get laid off, it's a shock. And I've been laid off twice, so I've gotten used to it. But I think that the way I have adjusted and grown from it and ended up having positions I would have never had if I hadn't been laid off is just by being very open to what comes next. I never would have gotten a job at National Geographic or even tried to get a job at National Geographic if I hadn't been laid off from the Washington Post, because I thought working in the book section there was the best job I could ever have. So I wasn't looking for anything else, but then I had to. And then I found something totally different, that tapped into an adventurous spirit that I didn't really hadn't been nurturing. So, yeah, I think just being open. When I started at National Geographic, I wrote a little post-it to myself that just said, say yes. So whatever came up, I was going to say, yes, I'll do that story. Even if I don't know
Love that.
anything about fracking for natural gas, I'll learn about it
Yeah,
or whatever the subject might be.
yeah, well, you've got those research and investigative skills. You can go
Hmm.
across a range of areas.
Yeah.
And I do think sometimes the universe, the higher being, whatever you want to think it is, gives us that little push sometimes out of our comfort zone too, yeah? So it's
Yeah,
being
true.
open to that. Yeah. So what would you say your strengths are when it comes to researching and drawing out insights for stories and articles?
I think I do have an eye for the telling detail or the detail that might be significant or stand in for something larger. I'm really interested in people's motivation for what they're doing and trying to capture their character. I just find it so interesting. I've been very lucky to interview a lot of scientists and explorers, and I always want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And you end up having these very it's kind of funny, you have more heartfelt conversations with this stranger just because you ask, well, why do you think it's really important to say Notre Dame with lasers so you can figure out how it was built? And I don't know. I just like to ask people questions.
Get down into the detail.
Right, right, right.
And I think the storytelling's coming through too, so it's about drawing out their personal stories as well.
Right. And you take all that information and sort of it's taking in so much and then sort of sorting it in your brain to turn it into a story that has a narrative that makes sense to the reader or the listener or the viewer.
Makes it more relatable, yeah?
It makes it more relatable, and I think people retain information and learn more when it's in a narrative form than just say a bunch of facts.
That's so true, that's so true. And do you think you have a bit of a sixth sense when it comes to, when you see, data or information and you just know that that's something that you should delve deeper into?
Yeah, of course I can't think of an example right now, but I do have an eye for something that is just very indicative of the larger story. Just from having the experience of writing and editing so much, know what the kind of information that you can use to illustrate a point or to elucidate something. So, yeah,
Yep,
I do have a
yep.
big eye for that.
Getting down into the detail, as we said.
Right,
And
right.
what is it about human-based narrations that excites and moves you? Like, why do you think they're so important for all of us?
Well, they're so fundamental to who we are as humans. I mean, we've been telling stories forever, and the
Since we're in
stories
caves.
since we're in caves, yeah, I mean, and the stories do so many things for us. They tell us where to go to get the good food. They tell us how to be a better person. They distract us from something because they're so exciting. Help us feel things that we might not ever feel otherwise. That you can feel empathetic, you can feel horrified, you can laugh. I mean, stories give you the human condition just in that narrative. I mean, there's few
Yeah.
things that are as important.
It's that human to human connection, as is the focus of this podcast. Yeah, totally. Is there a story that you could potentially share with us which really stands out as something you felt needed to be shared with others? Is there one that really
Hmm.
stands out where you felt this has to be shared?
Yeah, there's a couple, but one I worked on with a photographer. This was for National Geographic, and there's this really amazing photographer, American photographer named Lindsay Addario, and she had managed to get into Tigray, which is a part of Ethiopia where there was a civil war going on.
Oh,
And she
wow.
took these just beautiful yet terribly painful photographs of these women who had been attacked or a father who had lost four of his sons. But she wasn't, and she's actually written two books, and she's a beautiful photographer, but also can write. But she needed somebody to really turn it into a story and talk about the history of the region and really convey what was happening there because it wasn't in the mainstream news.
Yeah.
It's just in a little part of the world that's not really on people's front burner. So I took her notes that she had taken when she had photographed these people and turned it into a story, and we worked together. And I felt like together we could really convey what was going on in this place. And this is kind of what I meant. I mean, I have never been in the midst of a civil war. I have never seen my child get killed in front of me. I have never, been raped by soldiers. I mean, thank God, none of these things have ever happened to me. But with Lindsay's notes and her amazing photographs and my ability to shape the story and also explain why this was happening, I felt like we conveyed what it was like to be there and why it was a tragedy, even though it doesn't affect anybody's daily life in the US or Australia. But it's still important to bear witness to what is going on.
Yeah, and it deepens our empathy and maybe
Hmm.
our perspective. I remember quite a few years ago reading a story about someone in an African country who had to go and get water, a woman who had to go and get water, and always
Yeah.
risked being raped when she was going to
Right,
get
right.
water for her
That's a huge
family.
danger.
That has just that has stayed with me. You know, sometimes you
Yeah.
think, geez, get your life into perspective here, Jeanette. Like,
Right.
yeah, that balance,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us a bit more on what you've learned about yourself in terms of recognizing your own journey when writing about Amelia Earhart?
Oh, well, so when writing I started writing about her because I was just out of the blue assigned to go on this expedition to, Nicamoro Island, which is in the Phoenix Islands, which is part of Kiribati, so closer to you in Australia than to me on the
Yeah,
East Coast
she went
coast
missing
of the United.
over this part of the world, didn't she?
Yeah, she did,
Yeah.
she did.
Yeah, yeah, the South Pacific, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I had never done anything like that before. I had never gone so far away. At the time, my son was 13. I'd never been so far away from him. And it was such, I mean, it was a life changing experience because I realized I can do this. I can go so far away. I can write stories and do all the reporting I need to do. I can make sense of this overwhelming situation and just sort of make the best of it. And I think Earhart did that all the time. And she was put into situations. Her first flight also came out of the blue to her, where she was offered a seat on a plane that was flying from the East Coast of the US to, well, they were aiming for London. And she was just going to be a passenger, but no woman had flown across the Atlantic at that point, and lots of people had died in the attempt. And she did it. She was brave enough to do it, but then she also took this situation, which made her super famous. I mean, it was ridiculous how famous she was. She was very embarrassed because everybody ignored the pilot who had actually flown the plane and focused on
Because she was the
her
first
because she
woman.
was the woman. She was
Yep.
cute. She was charming. But she took that situation, which she was embarrassed by, and turned it into a career. So, I mean,
Wow.
I am not even a quarter as brave as she
Yeah,
was.
she took some
And
risks, didn't she?
she took some serious risk, and I can't fly a plane, and I'm not famous, but I can, in my own little way, I've tried to take an opportunity and make it into something bigger.
It must be really inspiring to follow someone like that's journey, doing your research for the book, yeah?
It is, but it also, you realize that she was human and
Yeah, yeah,
was
and
not
that's great though.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
and she made mistakes, and it took her a while to find her way to being a pilot. She was 30 or almost 31 when she became famous, so she wasn't a child for sure.
yeah, yeah.
She had sort of a challenging childhood, and I mean, she disappeared on her flight around the world. She was flying from Leh in Papua New Guinea to an island called Howland Island, just north of the equator. And she made a lot of mistakes that contributed to her disappearance. So
Right.
she certainly wasn't perfect, but I like
Yeah.
finding that out.
That
Like, I like finding the real person.
exactly. That I was just going to say that's the realistic, isn't it? That's the human.
Hmm.
We
Yeah,
all have
exactly.
flaws. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
and yet you can still achieve big things even if you have these flaws.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's really insightful for people to see, particularly because she's really famous in the US in particular, isn't she? She's really,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Like
I mean, people still
we know of
dress
her
up like
here.
her. Yeah, no, she's
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, for
Okay.
Halloween and things like that, little girls often dress up
Yeah.
as Amelia Earhart,
Okay.
yeah.
I've realised I've been pronouncing her name wrong. It's Earhart rather than Earhart. Is that right? Is it
Yeah, but
Earhart? Or is that
you
just
can
accent?
it might just be accent, actually, that's what I was assuming.
Good to know. So,
Yeah.
getting back to you, what would you say has been your most unconventional choice to date when deciding on your next career direction?
Well, I did quit one of the best jobs you could have in journalism. I quit National Geographic. I had been working on this book for a while and was kind of burnt out from I had some family deaths in the family that had really
Taking your
taxed me and
toll.
then yeah, taken a toll and we'd had some management changes at Nat Geo that were challenging. And I just found myself totally tapped out. And I had this book that I had kept postponing, pushing back the due date, and it was late. I just, it was like my brain had a cramp.
Uh,
So I needed to
it was
rest my
done.
brain or at least
Yeah,
focus on one thing at a time. So, yeah, I quit so I could finish the book.
that is pretty
And
brave. It's a pretty prestigious
yeah,
brand, isn't it?
maybe
National
not this.
Geographic.
Yeah, yeah. There are definitely things I miss about it, but including having a
It was,
steady income.
yeah, I can relate to that
But
working
I
for
just
myself.
yeah, yeah. But I knew the thing that motivated me was the book was mine, was the project my project and what I wanted it to be. And so that's just why I had to put everything into it rather than
It was
into this
time.
job.
It was
It was
time for you to
time.
step out.
Yeah,
And
it
do you think
was.
Amelia inspired you in any way to make that brave decision?
I suppose I mean, she certainly moved through a lot of jobs when she was in her 20s.
Bet
She
she
did a
did.
lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I think she was somebody who didn't wanna do she wasn't somebody who was just gonna take a 9 to 5 job and be bored. I think
Yep.
she had a very low tolerance for boredom.
Yep.
So, yeah, I suppose. I mean, I
Yeah, it's a
wanna
bit of inspiration there. Love
yeah,
it.
live my life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good for you. So you mentioned to me privately that people are often surprised when you tell them that you originate from Reno. Is it Reno?
Oh,
Reno in
yeah.
Nevada. So why do you
Yeah.
think that is?
Well, I mean, Nevada is not a very populated state. So, I mean, it's mostly desert and then it's desert and casinos, and that's what
Yeah.
everybody knows about it. But I think one thing I learned when I went to college in the Northeast in New England is that you can be parochial and inward looking in a small town, or you can be parochial and inward looking in a coastal city. People are just they just know what they know
Yeah.
and anything they don't know seems wildly exotic.
Right. So
Nevada
you
is
were
not.
exotic.
I was exotic. Yeah. Yeah, I was exotic.
From
Which
the
is
Wild
ridiculous.
West. From the
The
Wild
Wild
West.
West, exactly. I know. I was like, well, the suburbs of the Wild West.
Hence doing writing for a cowboy magazine at one stage, yeah?
Right. Well, I was very low on the totem pole there, but that was a fun little place. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sounds great. If you were starting out again in your career as a writer, editor, and storyteller, is there anything that you think you'd do differently now?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. One thing I wish I had done, well, two things I wish I had done is started out as, a local reporter in a local newspaper
Oh, yeah?
where,
What? Why is that?
because I think the experience would be so good of covering stories that are very important to the people who live in the community and
Yeah,
also being in that community and getting feedback. So then you really feel what the importance is. Like you encounter the real people where the information matters to them.
yeah, yeah, love that.
And then the other thing I wish I had at some point been a foreign correspondent
Oh, yeah.
for
Well, still
just
time. There's
to
still
have
time.
the I know there is still time. As I was saying that, I was like, I've still got time. I could do
Yeah.
that. But just for the fun of negotiating a new place and figuring out what was going on there, just living in another country, I think would be fun.
And again, I know I keep going on about Amelia, but do you think your experience that you talked about going to the islands and stuff like when you're
Hmm.
investigating for the book, do you think that's influenced you for going, wow, I want to get out into the world more?
Yeah, because I never thought of how much I liked being in a tropical area. I guess I was just thinking of the beaches and not so much of the people.
Yeah,
And we had this sort of weird madcap detour to Kiribati, to Tarawa, the capital. And it was just so cool. I just loved meeting people there. And again, it's the human connection where, we have very
yeah,
different lives, different language, different customs, different backgrounds. But it feels so powerful to connect with someone, even when or especially when you have such different backgrounds. And
absolutely.
I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And even, I used to travel in my younger days before children, I say BC,
Right.
traveled a fair bit. And even like when you can't speak the same language, but you can feel like the
Hmm.
signs and stuff, you feel a connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And I think it really just deepens our appreciation for differences
Hmm.
in humans. Yeah. How differently we
Hmm.
can all live and, yeah, think and,
Right.
mm.
Yeah, but and yet still have some fundamental things that are similar and that
Yeah.
we can connect on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the human fundamentals, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, just a broader question now, as someone who's been in the industry for so long, what are the primary shifts or changes that you've seen in publishing, particularly in more recent times?
Well, I have been in in media for 30 years almost. And so I'm old enough to know the effects of the internet and to see how
Facts
media
versus
still hasn't
fiction?
totally figured that out. Yeah. And I mean, some of the things I've seen is journalists asked to do more and more things. You also end up becoming a photographer and a videographer, and you have to develop a brand and, you know,
So you're more than just the
just
writer now, yeah?
yeah, you have to, or that's what sort of the management wants. And the thing that hasn't really changed, I mean, the stories are still the stories. Maybe
Stories
sometimes they're
still matter.
told, yeah, sometimes they're told with, they're shorter or they're told on a TikTok video or on a podcast or something. But the stories are still the stories, and you still mostly report them the same ways. I mean, now you can email somebody instead of calling them or
Yeah,
Zoom with them. But the stories are still really important. But there are a lot more people who are trying to do journalism without necessarily either the structure to support them or the structure to make sure that they're getting things right. And I think that makes it harder. But I don't know if this is the same in Australia, but I'm very encouraged by all the different nonprofit groups and smaller publications that are
yeah,
popping up that are
yes.
really making sure that there's investigative journalism going on or local journalism going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's happening in Australia, and I think we also have some international ones here as well. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
that they
good.
take it
Yeah.
seriously. Yeah, factual
Right,
media
right.
reporting, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
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 that's
that is
very
inspiring. You're right, or
yeah.
reassuring. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we desperately need people to be doing journalism, especially with all the misinformation and
so powerful,
AI
isn't it? Media is
generated
so
images.
powerful. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Rachel. A question: are there any final tips or words of advice that you could share with listeners about the value of human storytelling? I know we've delved into it a bit, but is there anything else you'd like
Mhm.
to add about the value and importance of human storytelling?
Well, I mean, I guess have been a storyteller professionally, like a professional listener and a
Yeah,
professional storyteller, but
absolutely.
anybody can do that. Anybody can ask questions of somebody just to find out why they're doing something. I think the most important thing for storytelling is curiosity, and that's something that everybody can practice. So you don't have to be a journalist, you don't have to be a podcast host. You
Yeah,
just have to, just wonder why something is the way it is and ask about it.
being curious, and I think what you said a little earlier too is really important. The listening. We're maybe
Yeah.
losing some of that with all the distractions around us, but that attentive
Right.
listening to one another.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on my podcast. I'm so excited. As I mentioned to you before, you're my second overseas guest.
Mm.
So I'm really excited that I'm going global. And
All
yeah,
right.
wow, yeah. And what an experience and what a story you have to share yourself about other people's stories. So thank you. I really appreciate you giving me the time to have a chat.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, what a pleasure.